The dawn air hung heavy over Engine Company 17, the firehouse's brick facade glazed by early morning humidity. Maya Davis stepped out of her old Chevy Silverado at exactly 6:15 a.m., the same time she'd reported for duty every summer since graduating the fire academy 2 years earlier. Her turnout gear, thick charcoal gray coat and trousers, was already neatly draped across her bunk, her SCBA pressurized overnight. She paused, inhaling the faint scent of diesel and old leather, as if grounding herself before the day's first challenge, proving once more that a woman of 5'3" and 125 pounds could stand shoulder to shoulder with the toughest firefighters in Detroit. Inside the bay, the brass pole gleamed under fluorescent lights. Maya slipped out of her civilian clothes, folding them with care, and stepped into her boots, sturdy, steel-toed, and perfectly broken in. She methodically clicked each strap of her bunker gear into place, the weight settling onto her shoulders and hips like a second skin. Her helmet, painted with a single silver stripe denoting her rank as firefighter, landed atop her head with a reassuring thud. It was ritual, armor, for the inevitable battles ahead. Lieutenant Hargrove, whose burly frame filled the doorway of the chief's office, looked up from his clipboard. Maya braced herself. He was known for testing his crew's mettle, and for his cutting remarks when someone fell short. "Davis," he said without looking up, voice low and measured, "ladder test at 0800. You ready to climb ladder 17? Or are you feeling too petite again today?" The quotation marks in his tone were palpable. Maya felt a familiar knot twist in her stomach, but she folded it away. "Yes, Lieutenant," she replied evenly, even as her jaw clenched. Size had never defined her, skill and determination had. After the morning briefing, Maya joined her crew at the apparatus floor. Engine 17's gleaming red pumper sat poised, hoses primed, lights reflecting off its polished chrome. Her partner, Firefighter Ramirez, gave her a brief, supportive nod. They'd trained together on every maneuver, hose lays, search drills, high-rise operations. Yet she knew that when the call came, every ounce of respect she'd earned would be tested anew. The department's new dispatch tone cut through the chatter. Box 35, fourth alarm, high-rise fire, 400 South Broadway. Maya's heartbeat kicked up as she slid into the turntable ladder truck. The crew vaulted onto the rig. Captain Ruiz in the command seat, volunteer crews riding shotgun, Ramirez and two others securing gear. Maya's hands moved with practiced precision, strapping on her face mask, donning heavy gloves, clipping her safety harness to the truck's steel frame. High-rise calls were equal parts adrenaline and dread. Confined stairwells, unpredictable fire behavior, hundreds of residents scrambling for escape routes. Today's target was the Aurora Tower, a 40-story glass and steel monolith whose reflection caught the rising sun like a giant beacon. As they roared through downtown streets, sirens wailing, Maya studied the tower's silhouette through the windshield. Smoke, still gray, but thickening as they drew closer, curled from the 35th floor like living fingers. She felt a surge of purpose. This was why she had endured every sneer about her size, every sideways glance in the locker room. Lives depended on speed, judgment, and courage, qualities that had nothing to do with height or weight. Her training flashed through her mind. Securing the base, extending the ladder, establishing a high-angle rescue line. She wasn't petite, she was precise. At the scene, the raw energy of the fireground hit her like a freight train. The roar of engines, the crackle of the blaze, the shouts of onlookers corralling terrified residents. It all coalesced into controlled chaos. Captain Ruiz barked orders into his radio, then turned to Maya. "Davis, you're up. Ladder 17 to roof. Check for fire extension and vitals." Maya nodded, her lips pressing into a determined line. Even as several male firefighters muttered doubts, she slung her tool bag over her shoulder and approached the turntable. The ladder climbed in steady hydraulics, each section unfolding like the spine of a giant. Maya's gloved hands gripped the rungs. Her boots found purchase on the damp metal. Below, her colleagues watched, some with genuine respect, others still unconvinced that her smaller stature could withstand the trauma of a 30-story ascent under full gear. But with every rung she claimed, every roar of the engine beneath her feet, she buried their skepticism deeper. Smoke stung her eyes as she neared the 28th floor, where frantic cries echoed for help. Her chest tightened under the SCBA, but her spirit soared. This was her moment to prove that courage, and not circumference, determined who could save a life. The mechanical whine of the turntable ladder's hydraulics filled Maya's ears as she gripped the first rung, her gloved fingers tightening against the slick metal. Below her, the street was a swirl of frantic activity. Haas lines snaked across asphalt, crews in full gear sprinted past, and black smoke billowed skyward from the Aurora Tower's 35th floor. Every instinct told her to hesitate, to wait for someone bigger, stronger. But hesitation wasn't in her nature. Maya placed one boot on the ladder's lowest rung and hoisted herself up, her pack, nearly 50 pounds of air tank, hoses, and tools, pressing into her back like a loaded canvas. The ladder vibrated under her weight, each segment extending with a reluctant creak. Sparks of latent doubt glinted in her mind. Too petite to handle this, Lieutenant Hargrove's words echoed. Yet with every upward step, she banished that voice, replacing it with the rhythm of her training. Steady ascent, 3 points of contact, eyes up, breathe slow. At the 20th floor, wind gusts buffeted her, carrying swirls of ash that stung her eyes even through her mask. She paused to wipe her brow with the back of her gauntlet, scanning the horizon for signs of roof collapse or falling debris. A colleague's voice crackled through her radio. "Davis, report ladder stability. We're seeing excessive sway." Maya shifted her stance, bracing her body like a tree against a storm. "Stability holding at 20, sir," she replied, voice calm. In truth, her heart pounded so fiercely she feared it might burst beneath her protective coat. Above her, the ladder extended further into the smoke plume. At floor 28, the children's daycare level, flames licked along the glass facade, heat radiating like an oven's breath. Maya felt the metal beneath her boots warm in response. She slowed, counting each rung deliberately. 29, 30, 31. Each upward movement was an act of will, a refusal to let size define her limits. At the 32nd floor, the ladder's tip rattled as falling glass pings punctured the air around her. She ducked instinctively, pressing her body close to the rail, then resumed her climb when the shard storm passed. In that instant, adrenaline sharpened her senses. The acrid smell of burning insulation, the distant crack of collapsing beams, the muffled pleas drifting through stairwell vents. With every rung conquered, she reminded herself of the lives waiting above. Parents, children, elderly residents, each heartbeat her own. When she reached the 35th floor landing, Maya's boots hit solid concrete with a thud that echoed in the stairwell beyond. The wind peeled smoke aside just long enough to reveal a horror show corridor. Charring black walls, singed carpets melting underfoot, and terrified faces staring as hope incarnate in her uniform. She unclipped her safety harness, her hands steady even as her muscles trembled with exhaustion. No one called her too petite here. They only saw the firefighter who had, and would, climb into hell to pull them out. Maya's gloved hand steadied on the cold, rain-slick metal rail as she unhooked her safety line and stepped off the ladder onto the 45th floor landing. Though the city had numbered it 35, the building's superstitious architects had skipped 13 and 14, so in her mind, it was the 48th. The corridor beyond was a tunnel of choking gray, smoke swirling in eddies so thick that her flashlight beam vanished after 10 feet. Heat rolled around her like a living thing, melting the soles of her boots against the scorched concrete. She pressed her back against the wall, heart hammering in her ears, and whispered into her radio, "Davis on 35, corridor ahead is impassable, switching to interior stairwell." Inside the stairwell, the banister glowed red from the Inferno just yards away, and each breath tasted like sulfur. Maya knelt and flicked open her belt-mounted radio. "All units, follow my voice, stay low, one step at a time." The first group emerged from the smoke. 3 panicked office workers coughing, eyes wide with terror. Maya crouched beside them, voice calm but firm. "Stay together. Hold my right hand, keep your heads down, and follow me. She clipped the strap of a terrified young woman to her harness, choreographing their escape like a delicate ballet in a burning theater. As they descended, a deafening crack above them heralded the collapse of ceiling beams, showering chunks of plaster and insulation into the stairwell. Maya hurled herself forward, shielding the group with her coat as splinters rained. A shriek echoed, a child's cry, drawn from a narrow service door marked "Maintenance Only." Pushing the survivors behind her, Maya kicked open the door and found herself in a narrow utility tunnel, lined with copper pipes groaning under steam. At its end, a small classroom, once a private nursery, housed 5 petrified preschoolers huddled under overturned desks. Their teacher, unconscious on the floor, lay with one arm stretched protectively over them. Maya set her gear aside and, with gloved fingers, checked the teacher's pulse before scooping her up and tucking the children into the crook of her other arm. Their plastic lunchbox rattled against her thigh as she hoisted the teacher bridal style, her lungs burning but unyielding. "This way," she called, identifying a service shaft she'd marked on her helmet's HUD map. The shaft's door was heavy, but with a heave of her shoulder it gave. Inside, the narrow emergency elevator shaft rose and fell like a steel belly. Maya shimmied past fallen cables and grime-slick walls, guiding her tiny passengers down by harnessing them to her belt. Emerging onto the 28th floor lobby, miraculously intact despite the raging blaze above, Maya handed the teacher to a waiting paramedic who gripped the woman gently, murmuring words of comfort. She then returned for the children, tying each little hand to her belt strap so none would slip away. As the elevator doors clanged shut behind her, Maya's lungs screamed for air, but she forced herself to swallow fire as she spoke into the radio. 5 children, 1 adult, secure in the shaft. Bring the medics to 28. Before she could rest, Maya knew dozens more awaited rescue above. She swung her helmet back on, straightened her mask, and rode the stalled elevator back up, every ounce of her small frame braced for the next ascension. Each rung she climbed felt heavier than the last, but Maya Davis, too petite to quit, moved upward through smoke and flame, determined to bring every single person down alive. When Maya Davis burst through the scorched metal door of the 28th floor refuge area, the acrid tang of smoke gave way to the muted whine of portable respirators and the frantic beeps of monitoring equipment. Dozens of residents, men, women, and children, huddled on plastic folding chairs beneath flickering emergency lights, their faces streaked with soot and fear. Paramedics in yellow vests knelt beside the injured, checking airways and wrapping bandages. For a heartbeat, Maya simply took it in. This was her stage now, and every move would be part of a delicate, life-saving choreography. "Over here," she called, voice carrying over the din. Near the far wall, a young mother lay collapsed, her daughter curled at her side. Maya wove through the cluster of first responders, scanning vital signs. "I've got her," she announced, pressing her gloved hand to the woman's wrist. A gasp rippled through the onlookers when Maya lifted the unconscious woman effortlessly into her arms. The child, 10 years old, reached up with tear-stained cheeks. Maya bent, offering her a quick, reassuring squeeze. "She's coming with me," Maya said, voice soft but firm, and handed mother and daughter off to a paramedic who murmured his thanks. Across the room, 2 elderly men sat slumped together, disoriented. Maya guided them upright, placing a firm hand on each shoulder. "We're going down," she said, pointing toward the stairwell door. "Stick close, and don't rush." As she led the pair toward safety, a shrill cry cut through the chaos. "Help me! Please, someone help!" Maya spun toward a cluster of overturned stretchers, where a firefighter lay pinned beneath a collapsed aluminum rail. Without hesitation, she dropped her own gear, radio, flashlight, tools, and dove between twisted metal beams. Veins standing out on her temples, Maya braced herself against the weight of fallen piping and pried the debris away bit by bit, her gauntleted hands slick with sweat. The pinned firefighter groaned, pain etched on his face. "I've got you," Maya murmured, her breathing controlled. With one final heave, she cleared the beam, rolled him onto his back, and signaled 2 paramedics to 1-2 lift him onto a clean stretcher. Moments later, Maya's attention snapped to the commotion near the stairwell. Uniformed officers had found the door to the daycare corridor ajar. She sprinted back, her heart pounding, and burst through. Inside, 5 terrified preschoolers clung to overturned desks, their tiny faces peeking through a haze of dust and PVC insulation. A volunteer teacher lay unconscious on the floor, her protective arm draped over the children. Adrenaline surged. Maya dropped to one knee, sweeping her mask aside to check the teacher's pulse. Finding it faint but steady, she scooped the woman into a cradle lift, folding her arms under the teacher's knees and across her back. Then, one by one, she gathered the children, tucking them against her chest, like living cargo. Their plastic lunchboxes knocked rhythmically against her thigh as she turned toward the stairwell. Climbing down the narrow stairwell with that precious burden tested every muscle in her body. Each step threatened to pitch the children off balance. Each heartbeat weighed heavy in her ears. Yet Maya's training kicked in. Heels down, center of gravity low, eyes fixed on the next tread. "Almost there," she whispered to the children, her voice a steady drum in the cavernous shaft. They emerged back onto 28, where a phalanx of rescuers fell into formation. Maya handed each child to a paramedic who wrapped them in foil blankets and offered sips of water. The last, smallest boy, no more than 3, looked up at Maya with enormous eyes. She knelt, level with him, and offered a thumbs up. He managed a shaky smile. Behind her, the glow of flames flared through the window beyond. A fellow firefighter clipped a safety line to Maya's harness. "We've still got 70-odd souls above," he said, voice low but urgent. Maya straightened, mask settling into place, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She nodded once, the unspoken agreement clear. The rescue ballet was far from over. With the same fierce determination that had carried her up the ladder, Maya raced back into the Inferno, rendering size irrelevant, resolve paramount. By the time the flames on the 39th floor were finally suppressed, Maya Davis's body trembled with exhaustion. She stumbled out of the stairwell and into the hazy glow of the command post, her turnout coat scorched at the shoulders and her helmet dented from debris. Every breath hissed through her mask like steam escaping a kettle. As a medic pulled her aside and clipped on an oxygen mask, Maya's knees buckled. She sank to a folding chair beside the mobile triage unit, sweat streaking soot down her forehead. Above the din of generators and crackling radios, she heard her name echoed over the loudspeaker. "Firefighter Davis, report to the incident commander." Captain Ruiz, his face streaked with soot and backlighted by emergency strobes, motioned her over. His eyes held a fierce pride. He pressed a bottle of water into her gloved hands. "You brought down 50 people, Davis," he said, voice thick. 50 lives because of you." Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but only a rasp emerged. She managed a nod and sipped the water, its cool rush grounding her. Word of her heroism had already rippled beyond the fireground. Reporters jockeyed at the tape line, microphones thrust forward. A television journalist shouted, "Firefighter Davis, how did you find the courage to climb twice and lead so many out?" Maya straightened, remembering the hollow ring of Lieutenant Hargrove's skepticism that morning. She lifted her chin, met the camera's lens, and spoke steadily. "I just did my job. No one's too small to save a life." The soundbite crackled through the station's PA and out over the city's airwaves, carrying her defiance and humility. Inside the makeshift media tent, a veteran news anchor pressed her for details. "Was there ever a moment you thought you couldn't go on?" Maya closed her eyes against the bright lights, recalling the 3rd floor where a collapsed ceiling had nearly buried her under hot beams. She drew a ragged breath. "Fear tried to stop me," she admitted, voice low, "but I couldn't leave anyone behind, not one person." As her words cut through the reporter's murmurs, she felt an unexpected surge of strength, proof that her size, her petiteness, was meaningless when weighed against willpower and training. Later that night, back at Station 17, the mood had shifted from the usual ribbing to solemn respect. Lieutenant Hargrove stood by her locker, helmet in hand. He cleared his throat. "Firefighter Davis," he said haltingly, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong to doubt you." Maya regarded him coolly. The sting of every past taunt still lingered. But when he extended his hand, she took it. "Just keep believing," she replied quietly. As the station's bay doors closed and the night settled in, Maya looked at the bulletin board, now plastered with newspaper clippings and thank you letters from rescued families. Among them was a photograph of her. Black soot streaked across her face, but eyes bright, cradling a frightened toddler on her shoulder. She placed her helmet on the rack with reverence. In that moment of stillness, Maya Davis understood that her moment of reckoning was not just a personal triumph, but a turning point for every firefighter who dared to defy assumptions, climb higher, and carry lives to safety. Maya Davis pushed open the scarred steel doors of Station 17 at first light, her bunker coat still drying on the rack and her boots marching to their own exhausted drumbeat. The bay was silent, no roaring engines or sliding poles, yet every locker in the room seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Half a dozen of her crewmates stood at parade rest, eyes fixed on her as she stepped off the apparatus floor. Lieutenant Hargrove emerged from the watch office, helmet tucked under one arm, shoulders squared. "Maya," he began, voice soft but steady, "you did what no one thought possible." He paused, scanning the silent faces around him. Then, with a deep breath, he added, "I was wrong about you." "I'm sorry." Humphrey, the grizzled driver who had never missed a chance to call her Little Firefly, stepped forward and saluted crisply. "Welcome home, Captain Davis," he said with a grin. The room broke in a ripple of reluctant chuckles and genuine applause, washing away months of grudging doubt. In the common room, a long table groaned under coffee crafts and donuts donated by grateful residents. As Maya poured herself a cup, Captain Ruiz slipped in beside her, draping a supportive hand over her shoulder. "The department is filing commendations for you today," he whispered, "and the chief wants you at City Hall this afternoon." Maya pressed her lips together, still some sting in her pride, but nodded. Every ounce of humiliation she'd felt when "Too Petite" was scrawled in her records had melted in the inferno of Broadway Tower. 2 hours later, Maya stood in the ornate rotunda of Detroit City Hall, its marble floors gleaming beneath vaulted ceilings. The mayor, flanked by the fire commissioner and PR photographers, greeted her with a brass-bound certificate, the Medal of Valor. As she accepted it, the crowd's applause thundered through the hall. Reporters jostled for sound bites. Maya spoke only one. "We climb for the people above, not for applause below." Her words echoed in the marble, a reminder that her truest reward was 50 families reunited. Back at Station 17 that evening, Maya convened a special training drill on the yard. Lieutenant Hargrove, now a willing sponsor, handed her the megaphone. "The new policy," Maya announced as the ladder truck's boom rose to test height. "All firefighters, regardless of size, get full ladder and rope certification. First session starts tomorrow at 0700 hours. She surveyed the eager faces, women who had hung back in prior drills, men who once scoffed, now leaning in to watch her technique. The same rig she had conquered under infernal heat now stood as an equal opportunity crucible. Weeks later, Station 17's bulletin board overflowed with thank you letters. One from the 4-year-old she carried down the stairwell, another from a nursing home whose residents she evacuated, and dozens of sketches from children in the daycare who drew her as a towering figure, helmet ablaze with flames, ladder steps beneath her feet. Maya pinned each to the board, her smile quiet but proud. She had not only saved 50 lives, she had ignited a transformation in her firehouse, proving that true courage isn't measured in inches or pounds, but in the size of one's heart. In the weeks that followed the Aurora Tower rescue, Maya Davis's life shifted from the fireground to the spotlight, and her impact rippled far beyond Station 17's bay doors. Local news ran feature segments on Detroit's Little Giant, framing her as the firefighter who defied every expectation. Yet Maya remained grounded. She used every interview to highlight one truth: that skill and courage have nothing to do with height or weight. Her words carried weight in city council chambers, where she testified in support of a revised departmental fitness standard that emphasized agility and technique over brute strength. Within a month, the fire department formally adopted her proposal. All ladder training now included confidence climb drills, regardless of an individual's stature, and annual assessments incorporated practical rescue simulations Maya had helped design. Back at Station 17, Maya transformed her personal triumph into a living curriculum. Twice a week, she led mini-giant workshops for recruits, firefighters of every size, demonstrating body angle techniques on the ladder, efficient pack carry moves, and smoke navigation drills in the department's burn tower. She showed them how to shift their center of gravity, how to brace themselves against ladder sway, and how to manage vertical rescues when weight seemed to conspire against ascent. Under her guidance, junior officers who once hesitated on the rungs now climbed with confident precision. Their earlier doubts dissolved in the crucible of Maya's patient instruction. Her influence reached City Hall, where the mayor's office invited her to co-design a Women in Fire mentorship program. Over coffee in the mayor's ornate conference suite, they mapped out scholarships for female cadets, birthing a pipeline that paired recruits with experienced officers, Maya among the first mentors. At graduation ceremonies for each new academy class, Maya strode onto the podium, helmet in hand, urging cadets to own every rung, every tool, every challenge. Her presence, small in frame but towering in reputation, became a beacon for countless women who had once assumed the firehouse doorway was closed to them. Months later, at a City Hall gala, Maya received the Medal of Valor from the mayor herself, a ceremony drenched in applause and camera flashes. Family members crowded around her sister clasping her hand, her father wiping tears, and fellow firefighters cheering "Little Firefly" as her nickname became a title of honor. In her acceptance speech, Maya dedicated the medal to every firefighter who ever felt too small to make a difference. We rise or climb together. Her words echoed in the marble rotunda, sparking a standing ovation that erased the last vestiges of doubt about her place in the brotherhood of brave souls. Each October, on the anniversary of the Aurora Tower blaze, Maya leads a memorial climb up Engine 17's training ladder, a silent ritual witnessed by colleagues, rescued families, and community members. Firefighter by firefighter, they ascend ladder segments painted with the names of those saved, pausing at each rung for a moment of reflection. At the final height, Maya reaches the top and places a single white rose in a crevice of the platform, an emblem of renewal amid ruin. As she descends, the crowd below unites in a hushed salute, reminding Detroit that true courage is measured not by size, but by the size of one's heart, and that a single person's resolve can lift an entire city out of the ashes.